Hello and welcome to the VMware Cloud Foundation Live, a monthly live stream where we discuss strategies and solutions for your cloud infrastructure journey. I'm your host, Pete Fletcher, and on this month's episode, we're discussing VMware Cloud Foundation Edge. Now, I recently read a blog that was talking about how businesses are aiming to automate intelligence and make time-sensitive decisions on site by bringing IT infrastructure closer to the data source. It sounds great, and it's definitely why edge computing has emerged as this critical technology. But deploying and managing edge infrastructure, that's probably not that simple, right? So some of the key challenges that I've read were like lack of scalable, flexible, turnkey infrastructure, operational overhead, skill gaps, security concerns, to name a few. Like certainly not super easy, but that's why we're going to talk about VMware Cloud Foundation Edge today. And so joining that conversation to tell us how VCF Edge can address some of these concerns is from the VMware Cloud Foundation division. We have product marketing engineer Sonali Desai. Sonali, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Pete. Thanks for inviting us.
Awesome. Also joining the conversation is senior staff architect Shri Das. Shri, welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah. So yeah, great conversation. Little secret. The blog that I did read about that information, it actually came from your blog, Sonali. So you may have recognized those words. And we will share links to all of the great resources that came out. But Sonali, why don't we just start? We understand that there is this use case for edge, but maybe we can back up and just talk about like what exactly is driving this need for edge.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Pete. Thanks for bringing this up. So let's take a step back and think about like why exactly edge infrastructure needed, why businesses need edge infrastructure. So today, like everyone is thinking about digital first, like it's in their mind throughout day and night, and they want to have this digital transformation at every phase in their business. And because the reasons are simple, like they want to stay ahead of the curve, they want to beat the competition, and for this digital transformation, data is one of the foundational element of this digital transformation. So this data, they gather this data from variety of sources like devices, sensors, social media platforms, applications, you name it. And when they are getting this huge amount of data, what they want to do is basically they want to use that data, apply some AI ML algorithms to it, and get some useful insights out of that data. And getting those insights is not just enough, like they have to apply those insights in the field, and for application of those insights they need this infrastructure that is closer to their data sources, and that's where edge infrastructure comes into picture. And there are variety of key drivers, like they need low latency, they have some compliance or data sovereignty issues where they want to keep that data local to the where it has generated. Also, the low cost of bandwidth is one of the concern that they need to address. The cost of bandwidth is basically a concern, and also like operational downtime, scalability, because they have like thousands of edge devices. So they need a scalable infrastructure. So because of all these key drivers, edge has become one of the key infrastructure components in today's businesses.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Not every company, a lot of companies have all these different locations, and it's not that easy to have secure, reliable, internet connections for each one of those with the highest bandwidth and all that. So very
Exactly.
valid concerns there. So good stuff. So you recently announced that this VCF Edge is this solution that answers these questions. Maybe we can talk a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah, definitely. And as you can see in this slide, like edge infrastructure is one of the topmost priorities for businesses. So you can see some stats over here, like around 350 billion is the expected worldwide spending on edge computing by 2027. So that's a big number. And let's talk about, you mentioned about some challenges, right? So let's talk about some challenges that customers face in real life when they try to deploy this edge computing infrastructure. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so let's start with the first challenge that they face, like lack of flexible, scalable, and turnkey solutions. So customers, they don't want to just bring different infrastructure components and tie those together. They want a turnkey solution where they can just have it at the edge, plug and play, and then start running. Also, they want flexibility. Like they sometimes they don't want a full stack solution. They want flexibility to deploy either full stack or independent components. They want scalability, as I mentioned, like literally thousands of edge devices. So they want to start small maybe and then scale later as per their business needs. Also, the incompatible infrastructure is what is the big challenge that we hear from customers. So what customers want is they want to integrate their edge sites with their main data center, and that is not easy if the infrastructure is not compatible between the two. Also, they have some skill gaps. So if they have new IT people at the edge sites, then they have to learn new skills because there are skill gaps when they are operating at the data center versus at the edge, and they have to learn new tools, new skill sets. So there is a big learning curve over there. Then one of the biggest concerns is operational overhead. So while operating edge sites, it's not feasible to have technical personnel available on each individual edge site. So, say if there are 1,000 edge sites, then it's not feasible to keep those technical people at those 1,000 sites.
Yeah.
So, and then keep that infrastructure up to date. They need to have those technical personnel over there, but operationally speaking, it's not feasible. So that is another key challenge that customer face. And because of that operational overhead, there are a lot of like costs involved, complexities involved. Also, security and compliance is one of the key concern, because when you have different devices at the edge, you are exposing those devices to multiple risks like cyber attacks and all that. So security is like a big concern from customers point of view. And last but not the least is infrastructure and operational downtime, because you are getting huge amount of data at these edge sites. So, and you have to have that much computational power to store or ingest that data, right? And then also you need to have a good network connectivity when you are communicating from edge site to data center. So if you don't have that, then you face that operational downtime, and that is a big concern from customers point of view.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. As a, it's a lot of money to make sure all this stuff is done, but clearly from a skills perspective, you just can't have, these administrators or experts in these various areas at your 200 sites across the country. It just doesn't matter. I certainly, in my experience as a consultant, had flying all over the country, deploying stuff in different locations, because of the fact that, the company that I was working for we just didn't have the people in the field. So
Correct.
I think that's a story that many people are familiar with. So I definitely see the challenges. And so I guess that transitions us into how VCF then can address some of these challenges.
Sure. So, to address these challenges, we basically brought VMware Cloud Foundation Edge. And what it is basically it is the optimized configuration of VMware Cloud Foundation stack. So what you are getting is you are getting the comprehensive suite of compute, storage, networking with vSphere, vSAN, NSX. Then you are getting the unified automation and operations layer on top of it with ARIA, and all packaged and bundled together, and it is running on your edge site. And if you want any advanced services, then you can have advanced networking security, advanced Tanzu for containerized workloads, or you can have more resiliency with ransomware and disaster recovery solutions. So, and last but not the least, if you want to have some AI ML applications running on it, you can have private AI services. So you can have all these advanced services on top of this VMware Cloud Foundation stack. So basically, you are getting the optimized version of VCF running at your edge sites.
Nice,
And
nice.
Shri, if you want to add anything more, please feel free to add.
Yeah, and I will say for those that are watching at home, hello to the live streaming audience, folks that are out there. We did see a couple of questions already come in. I think we got one here from. I'm probably going to destroy the. Is it Obi? I guess. What's the difference between edge and cloud computing? Sri, you wanna tackle that one?
Yeah, definitely. I think I saw somebody already posted that. But technically, think about this, right? The cloud computing, where you want to centrally host something and it is shared between the network and your data, your storage, your compute. and you're accessing centrally. And edge computing, it goes to local, near to your user, where your data source is, right? Your devices are running on your on a remote location where you're accessing that application and data close to your user, right? That's what the simple manner I can put that in. So that's your edge computing and cloud computing difference. But there are many more thought processes out there, but this is a generic, I would say, to make you clear definition between edge and cloud computing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, keep the questions coming. I see a couple of more in here, but we'll keep the conversation moving. Moving to the next.
There is a
Go ahead, Sri.
Pete, there is another question. Somebody asked, what is the minimum requirement for the VCF edge deployment? Hold that thought. So when I'll cover my technical design session and everything, I'll cover that questions as well.
Awesome, awesome. And I see Valdemar in there who's answering questions. Thank you, Valdemar. You're a great resource for us. But yeah, we will continue the conversation and talk about what exactly is in the box with VMware Cloud Foundation Edge.
Yeah, sure. So as you can see, you are getting the full stack VCF over here. So you get lifecycle management, you get vSphere for compute, you get vSAN for storage, you get the networking from with NSX, then you get the Kubernetes runtime, and for automation and operations, you get ARIA suite. So everything packaged together for you. And then Shri, if you want to talk about like what is exactly difference between VCF stack and VCF edge stack, then we have a next slide for that.
Yeah, sure. So I don't know how much you guys know the VMware Cloud Foundation. So if you have a VMware Cloud Foundation on your premises, or if you are looking for it, so everything was included today on VMware Cloud Foundation. We have same bill of material, same component covers on VMware Cloud Foundation Edge. However, we also gave a privilege and added another vSphere for witness appliances, because most of the customer will use 2-node remote clusters in different locations, right? So this is a added advantages for you, because this license is already included, and you can use VMware Cloud Foundation Edge wherever you wanted to use. And there are a few other things I can talk about when I go into detail on the design pattern and everything. But most importantly, these are the same component. If you have a VCF and VCF Edge, however, you'll get vSAN Witness included on VMware Cloud Foundation Edge.
Yeah, love the vSAN Witness technology. I remember I'm old enough to remember when that was not a thing, and vSAN you just had to have another host for that, you know, and which really made it rough for those edge environments, because it's like, look, I got 200 locations. I don't want to have that. That's 200 extra hosts that I need to add just to have a tiebreaker, or just to have that witness functionality. So yeah, really glad that that's now part of it, and also glad to see that that's part of VMware Cloud Foundation Edge as well. Very cool. All right, so moving along, I did see one of the questions on there. Somebody was asking about what are some of the use cases. So maybe we can dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, so actually, Pete, let's talk about some of the key differentiators over here, and
sure.
then we can dive deep into use cases on my next slide.
I'm jumping ahead. My apologies. Yeah, let's talk about some of the key differentiators, because obviously Edge is not it's not a brand new idea. It's something that's been out there a while, and I know, but I'm just curious to see what VCF Edge, how do we differentiate with Edge?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So as you said, like there are so many edge computing solutions in the market today. So where exactly VCF Edge is different than all of these solutions? So the first thing is we are providing the enterprise-ready turnkey infrastructure. So customers are getting the entire comprehensive stack with compute, storage, networking, management, security, everything packaged together. And they are getting the built-in security, supportability, manageability, high availability. So all those enterprise grade features packaged together, ready for them to use at their edge sites. Then unmatched flexibility and scalability. So with VMware Cloud Foundation Edge, the key differentiator is we are giving customers flexibility so that they can deploy full stack if their business need is according to that, or they can deploy individual components. So we are giving them full flexibility with that. And also they can start small and they can scale later according to their business requirements. So they can have small far edge sites, then they can have large near edge sites at scale. So according to their business requirements, they can scale accordingly. Also very important point, and that is basically addressing that operational overhead challenge that businesses are facing. So this is automated deployment and lifecycle management. So with VMware Cloud Foundation Edge, customers can have automated deployment of their infrastructure at their edge sites. They can have this automated lifecycle management. So they can use either SDDC Manager or vCenter deployed on their data center or at the edge sites. So we are giving them all this flexibility, and with that they can do the automated lifecycle management. So it will take care of all their updates, upgrades, patches, everything. So they don't have to have like a technical personnel on site. It's like zero touch provisioning for them. um, Another key advantage is consistent and familiar platform. So we are providing the compatible infrastructure. So when you have the edge sites, then while integrating those edge sites with your data center, you don't have any complexities or risks involved, or it is not time consuming at all because it is a compatible infrastructure. And also it is a familiar platform. So you can use whatever the tools and skill sets you have been using for last 20 plus years. You can use the same tools and skill sets. So very minimal learning curve over there. And a very important one that we hear from customers is unified operations and management. So we are providing a unified operation layer so that you can manage your edge sites together. So you can either use area operations or you can use vCenter to manage different workload domains across the edge sites. So that is a unified orchestration layer that we are providing on the top. And that is very important, especially when you are managing thousands of edge sites together. So, Shri, please feel free if you want to add anything more.
No, that's good. So I'll cover some of the use cases and how those designs will look like, right?
Mhm.
Let's move forward with the next step, right? So I'll cover a few of this use cases and everything as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are all great points. Management is huge. Lifecycle management is big. I love the fact that anyone who's already using VMware Cloud Foundation can already experience the power of SDDC Manager and lifecycle management, being able to create separate workload domains and being able to have that single sign-on domains and have that isolated location for deploying and then doing lifecycle management. And it just makes sense that we would extend that over to the edge, because you clearly don't want to have Joey in New Jersey, in the New Jersey office, changing tapes for you on a daily basis, and making sure that everything is done. So I think we all understand the value of having a centrally managed, but then also having flexibility in terms of where the person who's managing it is. So that seems like a powerful solution. So yeah, Shri, why don't we pivot over to the various use cases that are out there?
Yeah, so you also pointed out many things, right, around the STDC manager and flexibility. You added some of the wording there, right? So I wanted to give some kind of a understanding around that. So VCF, VMware Cloud Foundation Edge, has a very flexible platform, and similarly, VMware Cloud Foundation Edge gives you a lot of flexibility, scale, performance, security, all those inbuilt around that, right? Automation, like Sonali pointed out a lot of time, right? So we'll go through some of the design pattern later on a little bit, but let's talk about somebody also as the use cases around that, right? So I think, thank you, Waldemar, because you already covered some of the use cases around that. But give an example right now, right? These are a lot of times you'll see in an industry, people wanted to use for their robo, like fulfillment center, or even a BDI environment, or even manufacturing automation, factory automation, right? You wanted to do a AI ML at the edge, right? Real-time analytics, right? IoT, and certain times content delivery. So it goes across the board, right? It's not like a single thing where you wanted to do, but today edge is growing, right? Everybody wanted to close to the data, close to the user, and for the performance, and a lot of AI ML use cases coming in, right? So it's across the horizontal. If you take all the across the edge use cases, these are the top level use cases you'll find for the VMware Cloud Foundation Edge, right? So we support everything. And can we go next slide, please? Okay, now we talked about use cases. We talked about Sonali covered many things around the why and what exactly it works and how it works. Let's talk about a little bit more detail around what are the options available with VMware Cloud Foundation Edge. So I will cover one with SDDC Manager right now. How does that work in terms of deploying a workload domain? How many workload domain you can deploy, and how you want to scale, right? So if you know the SDDC Manager concept, it's basically the VMware Cloud Foundation where SDDC Manager manages all your LCM and deployment, lifecycle management for entire stack, right? So similarly, we have the options if you wanted to deploy with 3 node, 2 node with no vSAN, or you can do a consolidator or isolator, like think about air gapped environment, and you wanted to manage that environment with your 4 node clusters, and it's a self-contained. You don't need to go to a central site, and you manage that in maybe a shipping yard or maybe a manufacturing where you want to deploy that 4 node cluster, and you manage self-sufficient way without a internet connectivity, and it's maybe only local area network connectivity around that, right? So that you can go up to 64 clusters, right? On the left-hand side, on 3 node clusters, similarly, you can have a 16 maximum and a cluster size. vSAN is mandatory requirement for 3 node cluster because of the resiliency, high availability, and other things. You can have a 24 VI workload domain, which is a virtual workload domain and a compute workload domain where we can segregate your workloads. So in 5.2, we have also gave the options to the customers without NSX. Let's say you don't want to deploy your VMware Cloud Foundation Edge on your workload domain without NSX, then you can have 30 VCF Edge clusters with VLAN back network. It's just a vSphere networking the way you have been doing 20 years now. And similarly, central LCM is across the board. We provide SDDC Manager, provide the automation lifecycle management centrally from your data center or your edge hub. I would say edge hub because this is one of the things I wanted to define that right now so that you understand what exactly it's called. Because somebody asked the question, what is the requirements? I'll come to that in a moment. What is that looks like? Because in your regional data center or a edge hub or somewhere is centrally you are locating that hub which is managing your multiple edge sites, right? And minimum we recommend with SDDC Manager, and you wanted to manage multiple sites, you at least need a 10 MB bandwidth and 100 millisecond latency round trip, right? So that way you are equipped with the network performance, scale, and everything. That's the requirement for the with SDDC Manager. Next slide, please.
Yeah, sure. And I might be jumping ahead. I just had a question. So, if you're managing this, and I apologies if you're going to cover this, but do you always manage it from the main data center, or are there options to manage it, say, on site? If there's a scenario where somebody wants to do some local management based on internet connectivity, things like that, or is there flexibility around where you actually do your management?
Yeah, so I mentioned that, right? VMware Cloud Foundation has a full flexibility. You manage locally or isolated environment or air-gapped environment, near edge, far edge, or a central site. You have full
Excellent.
options. You can design your architecture and your deployment model based on your requirements. And we have published a very detailed design guide. I think Walmer already shared that, but we'll definitely share that resources. It covers all the design patterns, how customer can deploy multiple deployment models, right? So like you mentioned some of the things, right? This is one of the model, right? We're talking about mostly traditionally you will have a data center, you will have multiple edge sites, right? And nothing fancy here because this is just a snapshot overview that how customer look at today. Okay, I have a one data center and few edge sites, right? But there are many more designs, right? Because we may not host everything on a data center. You wanted to host somewhere near to your edge. Maybe that's a edge hub or a regional location. You wanted to manage your edge sites, right? You can dedicate that as a central site for your edge, or you wanted to dedicate somewhere else, right? So here in one example, we have a one management domain, which is your first cluster. When BCFH you brings up your cluster, that may be one of the location where you deploy your area operation. You have a vCenter, you have a STDC manager, right? And then on the right hand side, you have another few workload domains with 2 or 3 nodes, depending on the requirements. And then you can deploy that workload domain for your workloads, right? But so this is a standard definition for how you want to scale. But let's dig into many more other patterns, how you will see your edge deployment look like. Next slide, please. Okay, this is one of the example, unified operation management, right? Sonali was pointed out before, but let's take a look on this architecture, right? There's 2 or 3 scenarios fit into one slide. So what does that mean, right? So you may have a dedicated STDC manager on your central site. That may be any location, right? You may have a multiple workload domains, and each vCenter is managing that workload domain. That workload domain may be a different location. It is not in the same location. It may be span out in some location. Let's say, give an example, you have a San Francisco, you have a Tokyo, you have a Dallas, some other locations, right? Those are maybe specific to data center. Now let's talk about, you have a air gap environment, or you have a isolated environment, or you wanted to dedicate, like Pete was asking this question, I wanted to manage locally, right? So you can dedicate another STDC manager for that specific location and manage independently, versus the central STDC manager managing other location for your data center. Now you have a area operation. Now that can be centrally present somewhere and manage, give you unified health monitoring, as well as all the monitoring capability around the area operation, which will give you multi-facet view and a single pane of glass with all the inventory objects and clusters and the data center and edge view in one location, right? So this is one of the example how customer, like a lot of our customer are using this model because of the unified management capability, as well as the multiple angles of HTTC manager, how you can deploy it.
Yeah.
So
And these are
Shri,
mix match, right?
Go ahead, Sonali.
So Shri, you are showing like how they can have SDDC manager deployed either at the data center or at the edge sites. But is there an option where they can go without SDDC manager?
Yes. So let's go to the next slide and I'll clarify that. And Pete, you had a question too?
Yeah, I was just saying, if you have all these different scenarios, are you locked into one, or is there the ability to actually mix configurations?
Yeah, you can mix. So I'll go through all the design. Let's go through this one. Like, this is kind of a little bit decoupling some of the components from the VMware Cloud Foundation Edge, and you're designing your own solution based on your fit, right? This example, think about a customer as a HTTC manager and managing whole data center, but they don't have a requirement to go full-blown HTTC manager for all the edge locations, right? Due to uh, capacity planning, or due to operational efficiency, or due to some other examples, right? So we have a flexibility, as I mentioned, right? So now we can deploy another vCenter somewhere near to the edge, right? And that vCenter can be dedicated to for all the 2-node edge clusters. So here I'm showing 2-node. You can have a 1-node, 2-node, 3-node, 4-node, depending on whatever requirements are, right? And let's say the reason I position here 2-node is because I just wanted to show you witness appliances, how that can be fit into this architecture, right? So if you have 1-node, you don't need a witness appliances, right? If you have 3-node, you don't need a witness appliances. Only when you're coming a 2-node, you need a witness appliances. So in this example on the top, you can see STDC manager managing a couple of regional data centers, or you can say edge side or whatever, doesn't matter. But there is a right hand side, there's a vCenter sitting somewhere on the central site, or different location wherever customer wants, as long as the connectivity is there. And 2 nodes are dedicated to each edge locations, right? And the witness appliances is managing all your 2-node clusters remotely, right? So this is a mix and match configuration, right? So basically you're mixing both the designs into a single architecture, right? And then customer can do the lifecycle management for all the 2-node edge cluster through vCenter, and for the data center, or I can say a thick edge, which is a like multiple clusters running for edge, right? Depending on AI application, or you want a high intensive data workloads, right? In that case, you can combine your SDDC manager to do the lifecycle management for those left-hand side regional DC1, DC2, and the other vCenter is managing your scalable edge infrastructure remotely hosted for 2 nodes, right? And then ARIA Ops, as I mentioned before, same thing. ARIA Ops can again do the unified monitoring for both your edge and data center, right? So you're combining everything together, right? So it's a flexible configuration where you can use it.
Yeah, sounds like it. Clearly, if you're talking one host, though, then that's not vSAN, right? Because your storage will probably be something different in that case, I'm guessing.
Yes, you can have a local storage, or if you have a local any IP storage, you can attach to that local
Nice, nice.
local host. Yeah.
I love the flexibility. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Next slide, please. So this is another example. Let's say you wanted to dedicate a central data center with 4 nodes just for your management component. And now you move a regional hub, or where you wanted to dedicate another cluster for your edge deployment, right? So that means your SDDC manager is in central data center, your ARIA Ops is in central DC, and your edge vCenter is on a regional data center near to edge, and then witness will be near to your vCenter, which is hosted on your regional location, edge location, right? And then your workloads and the 2-node clusters is sitting across the remote locations wherever you wanted to deploy that, right? So you covered that, but this is giving a how you wanted to segregate on your architecture perspective, right? Next slide, please. So Pete, you have any question? But this is similarly, we're talking about mix. So I have given a high level thought process here, like how you wanted to mix it, right? So give an example. Let's say you have a multiple workload domains. Let's say you have 24 workload domains. Somebody asked the question, what is the requirements are, right? I'll cover that question here on this slide. So minimum, so if you wanted to have a VMware Cloud Foundation Edge, the minimum requirement is you should have a 25 edge location, physical locations, right? Either it's a server room, or it may be a different physical location on same sites, but it should not be called out a data center, okay? So you have to have to show it's a 25 physical edge locations. And the other requirements is you minimum it should be 8 CPU for the edge, and you have to go 256 maximum core. Okay. So so now the other questions, there is another question I read through, but I have not read through other questions now. But question was, if I have a 256 core, that's a maximum, right, for the VCFs. How do I mix and match or mix the configuration with my data center and edge? Okay, here's the story how you want to flexibly design that, right? So you dedicate that 256 core for your edge. Remaining, let's say you have only 310, give an example, right? So maybe after 256, you don't have another 256 edge licensing to buy another edge licensing, but you can dedicate those remaining licensing for VCF full stack. So you just buy the core which is specific to that VCF core. So that means you can have, let's say, 10 core, or sorry, 20 cores for VCF data center, right? And then remaining 256 for your edge, edge core, right? So that means basically you can design that 1 node, 2 node, 3 node, 4 node, whatever you want to do for your edge location, as long as it is 25 sites, 8 core minimum, 256 core maximum. After that, remaining you can just buy for VCF full stack licensing and put that in your data center. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, so that's what it explains here, how you want to mix your design with your licensing. Okay, now comes to VCF has a full flexible options for your design, right? We mentioned. So here are certain other example with STDC manager, without STDC manager. Now let's talk about without STDC manager, right? People must have doing this since 10 years or 20 years you have been doing, right? We have technology, VMware has provided, like people have been doing it. But when they hear about, okay, VMware Cloud Foundation, they think that, okay, oh, we don't have any other option left out. We are just wanted to go to with STDC manager. No, that's not true, because you can also deploy VMware Cloud Foundation Edge without STDC manager. You just bring your vCenter and you can do standalone ESXi or vCenter with ESXi, multiple single sites with each site have a vCenter. But there's some pros and cons, right? Certain times if you have to have a multiple vCenter and single ESXi, there's an overload of management overhead, right? So
Yeah,
you have to think through that, right? So
that sounds
or
messy.
exactly, right? And then there is a vCenter and ESX and multiple sites. So depending on how and you wanted to take, these are the pros and cons. Like I have listed out a few areas of uh, pros and few areas of cons, right? You can defend yourself, or you can convince your IT practitioner or whoever taking the decision, hey, this is the best fit for my requirement. Okay, think about this one, right? Somebody deploying a vCenter with a single ESXi host, they may have a air gapped environment that request that kind of things. Maybe think about a shipping container moving on the sea. They just need one host. They don't need more, right? But that's perfectly fit for them. They just manage them independently, right? And then same thing. Can we go to next slide? So similarly, like we also talked about two node with vSAN witness, two node with external storage. But external storage means you also need another locally available storage, IP storage, which can be available to those
Mm.
two nodes, right? Similarly, for single node, you can have a local storage. Yes, today all the hosts supports a lot of capacity and other thing. But either you have a local storage, or if you have a network storage, IP storage, you can share with your host, that is fine too. So there's different models and pros and cons. We have covered this very detailedly on the design white paper. Take a look, right? That covers everything, all the models, right? So
So Shri, I have a question here. Like you mentioned all these options, right? So, can you give some sizing examples to our viewers, because they like when they try to design their infrastructure, they need that sizing guidance. So, say if they go for two node with vSAN and Witness, then how many sites they can deploy? So, if you can give some sizing example, that will be.
yeah, very good question. That's exactly I have in one slide. Can you go to next slide? Hopefully I'll cover that. So yeah, next slide. Yeah, here. So sizing example, right? You wanted to scale 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 sites. We have customers today. They are right 4,000, 5,000 sites today. And we recommend certain patterns to follow, so that way you can scale and the performance doesn't degrade when you are deploying this kind of model, right? Let's say that you have 1,000 site with two node vSAN cluster. You may have a vCenter already dedicated for your management, right? And we will recommend two vCenter. The reason being is for high availability and resiliency, right? One vCenter for your management, you're managing all infrastructure component, and another vCenter is dedicated for your edge, right? And you need 16 vSAN witness appliances for 1,000 sites. Why? Because each vSAN witness appliances can support 64 two-node clusters, right? So that way you can have 1,000 sites with 64 vSAN witness hosts, right? So you have to size that appropriately when you are designing 1,000 sites, because your management infrastructure or the capacity to host that witness appliances require that many resources, right? Similarly, if you go to 2,000 sites, you need same two vCenters. However, we recommend that you now double the vSAN witness appliances, 32 vSAN witness appliances. Then you linearly go for 5,000 sites. You now need three vCenters. One is dedicated for management. Now you have to create a two dedicated edge sites, right? The reason being is you can go three or four depending on the requirement, right? but let's say 3 for the edge. Though you can go 2 or 3 depending on the scale, because each vCenter will give you 2,500 hosts, and another will give you 2,500. But if you divided it in 3 node, then you need 3, because there's a little bit shortage, right? Then 3 edge vCenter means you can dedicate one vCenter for one specific region, right? Maybe it just goes to America, and then another maybe APAC, or another maybe somewhere in Europe, right? You can dedicate those 3 edges to support 5,000 sites, and you need 80 vSAN witness appliances to support those 5,000 sites. Okay.
Yeah, this is very useful.
That is a good example. Well, yeah, I know there's actually several resources out there for some of this information. I know some folks are asking if we can actually get the presentation. There is a PDF version of this. I can actually leave it in the chat of this live stream after the event. But I know that there's also a couple of locations for resources. I know for a fact there's a white paper on there. First, there's a blog that I mentioned that Sonali wrote, which is actually on this Broadcom VCF Edge. There's also for all VMware content, for VMware Cloud Foundation, there's a blog for blogs.vmware.com/Cloud Foundation. So there's plenty of blogs out there. And Shree's been talking a lot about the various settings that are all in the design guide. So link below here, Broadcom Tech/design guide. That's where you can find all the resources. But yeah, any other locations? I'm assuming we're going to have listed on this slide here. And Sonali, thank you so much for posting in the chat links to each of those for those that are watching live. One more thing before we go to any other questions out there. Quick plug: VMware Cloud Foundation is going to be center stage at our event, VMware Explore, which is happening on August 26th. So we definitely hope to see you there. There's going to be a lot of great sessions out there. I'm curious, Sonali and Shree, are there any sessions that you're aware of that people need to be aware of at VMware Explore?
Yeah, we have a VMware Explore, VMware Cloud Foundation Edge design consultation. It is there. But if you can go to the calendar, schedule, and everything, content catalog, it should happen there.
Yeah, the content catalog. Just look for either look for Edge or look for Shree, and I'm sure you'll find it.
Yeah.
And also, there is a session on what's new in VCF, and VCF Edge will be covered as part of that session as well, with all the latest and greatest that is coming into Edge. So I would highly recommend attending that session. What's new in VMware Cloud Foundation.
Yeah, and shameless plug, I've got a couple of sessions there as well. I will be doing one on demystifying GPUs and DPUs with my good friend Dave Morera. And the Virtually Speaking podcast is hosting a session with William Lamb and some other home lab experts. And we're going to be discussing all the various use cases for home labs. So check out those two sessions. Man, Shree, that was awesome. Sonali, thank you for setting us up with the key value proposition of VMware Cloud Foundation Edge. I personally have learned a lot about this. Let me see, before we let you go, are there any other questions that we want to? I think we did a pretty good job of answering the questions in the chat. I think I can let you guys go. Any closing thoughts?
No, I think this is great. If any other things, like if you guys need to know, then reach out to us, and we'll definitely help you answer any other questions.
Yeah, this has
thank
been
you so
really
much
good.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And even if you are at Explore, then our experts are going to be there. So please feel free to schedule the meetings with our SMEs, and they'll be able to answer your questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, VMware Cloud Foundation Edge. This is great content. I appreciate all the information today for Shree and Sonali. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you, Pete. Yep.